Hi, welcome to another episode of Mabuhay TV. This is your host, Julia Lim. And today, I'm so excited to introduce our guest. Primrose is an award-winning Jewish Filipino-Canadian playwright and author. Please welcome Primrose.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you. So I'm really excited. I would say fellow author and fellow kababayan.
Yes.
Yes, because I'm also an author myself, so I'm excited to talk about you. Of course, I know you have a lot of achievements, so please tell our audience more about you.
Yes, I've been a playwright since 2000, and I've had several plays at the Fringe Festival, also at the Carol Shields Festival, new works at Prairie Theatre Exchange, and Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre and Winnipeg Jewish Theatre. And I've also written a novel, Lessons in Fusion. This is my novel here.
Oh, wow.
Lessons in Fusion is I actually won several awards for it. I won the award for Best Manitoba Book Award for young people. I was also nominated for Manitoba Book Award for First Book and for the Manitoba and the Saskatchewan Young Readers' Choice Awards.
And Saskatchewan.
Yes,
not
both.
just Manitoba.
Yes.
Wow. So definitely, for sure, it's going to be
Yes.
international next year. Okay. So what about your book? What inspired you to write your book?
Well, what happened was that during the pandemic, my son was very stressed out with like online reading, feeling isolated, and he was getting frustrated and angry. And for me, when I feel stressed out, I like to read. So I suggested to him, why don't you read some of the books that are next to your bed, since during the pandemic we weren't allowed to return them to the library. And he was 12 at the time, and he turned to them and he said, none of these books are something I'm interested in. They're all post-apocalyptic, which honestly, that is all the books, like a lot of the books for that age group. They're about the end of the world, and that's not what you want to read during the pandemic.
Of course.
And secondly, he also said, none of these books are about kids like me. And I really took that to heart, because my son is, he's mestizo. He is half Filipino and half Ashkenazi Jewish.
Yes.
I turned to him and I said, if I write a book with a character like you, would you read it? And he said yes.
Oh, okay.
Now, we were watching a lot of cooking shows at the time, because honestly, that's the only thing that was on that seemed less stressful. And so together we actually came up with the idea of the storyline behind the book, which is about an Ashkenazi Jewish girl who is also half Filipino, and she enters a cooking competition, but is told only cook Filipino food, but she knows nothing about it. So she learns about her culture, the food, and why her mother kept it all from her in the first place.
Oh, wow. That was a very interesting story. I mean, of course, food, we all know that in Filipino, we all love food. We are family-oriented. We, connect with the food. It's like a fiesta.
Yes.
Right? Fiesta, right? So, I mean, everybody is like, it's actually rude if you say no. If you have a visitor that come in, eat. It's just like saying thank you and welcoming. So I would say that was very, very interesting, connecting the culture and your inspiration behind of this. So how long were you able to write the book though?
Because it was during the pandemic, there was no, I was only working part-time at the time, because I had to homeschool my children. It was also, there was no school activities or kids activities, so there was no soccer, there was no folk dance, so I had a lot of time. Because I had so much time and my brain was so inspired, the first draft only took about 2.5 months to write.
2.5 months?
2.5 months. I mean, I'd never finished something so encompassing in such a short amount of time, but just being isolated, being just with my family, and having no distractions, it made it so much easier to write.
Definitely, wow. And you know, it's so funny because when I also start writing my book, it's also during pandemic.
Yes.
Yeah. Although I work in the healthcare field, I also feel like I'm not isolated. Technically, I'm always working, but I
Right.
still feel isolated. At that moment, I can't see my friends. I only go home and go to work. And also, it takes me time. Like, I know it's been a long time of dream of mine to write my own
Yeah.
book. So that actually inspires well, like, why not just do something, right? So I think there's also good stuff coming from the pandemic, right?
Yes,
Like
exactly.
writing a
something,
book.
something good had to come out of that, right?
Of course. Yeah. Well, the silver lining. So I know you talk about your book, what the inspirations about it. And inspired you about the book. So speaking of the book, so is there other books that your favorite, and what are books that your favorite, or an author?
A couple of my favorite books. I actually talked about this I was featured on CBC's The Next Chapter with Sheila Rogers just before she retired, and they talked to like up and coming authors and established authors across the country, and they asked me to talk about some of my favorite books, and these two books I reread because I found them so fascinating. One of my favorite books is Padma Lakshmi's autobiography. She's the host of She was the host of Top Chef, and she now has her own show on the Food Network and a travel show. And she wrote an autobiography about her experience as an immigrant coming to the U.S. and feeling that tug living between two worlds. And it's a really wonderful story that combines food and life. Just a beautiful metaphor about this blend and this fusion, and how she built her life from scratch and to increase what she calls chat, to increase flavor in her life. I just really found it inspiring.
Oh, wow, that's inspiring.
Yes.
I never heard about it, but give me a good
It's
idea.
called Love, Loss, and What We Ate.
Oh.
And another one of my favorite books, I'm a fan of fantasy and sci-fi, and there's a book by Roselle Lim called...
Oh, Lim.
Roselle Lim.
Okay.
It's called Natalie Tam's Book of Love and Fortune. And it's also about the first generation immigrant experience, about growing up in San Francisco and defying her family and trying to meet up to expectations, and she ends up inheriting her mother's restaurant.
Okay.
And she learns her grandmother's recipes. And this is a book about magical realism. And when she reads her grandmother's recipes, they're actually magical spells.
Oh.
It's a really, I can't go any further without spoiling the book, but it's a really beautiful book by a Canadian author.
A Canadian author.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, it's about food and stories, so
Yes.
definitely connects you to your roots, your culture. So a bit of everything.
Yeah, I love the idea of food and as a metaphor for culture, because I believe that food is one of our gateways to culture. Whenever you want to learn about a new culture, often we learn about that culture through food.
Yes.
I mean, Folklorama alone. The
Oh, yes,
reason why
definitely.
people go to Folklorama, the first thing they do is they try the food. And that's a way to, as an entrance to learning about something new.
Exactly. It's also a good icebreaker topic, right?
Yes.
Like, hey, what's your favorite food?
Yeah.
As we all know, for Filipinos, I think most people, or non-Filipino, they always ask me, hey, do you know how to cook egg roll or
Yes.
pancit? That's always number 2 request. And I think adobo, it's more like America. I feel like people like adobo, well, chicken
Yes.
adobo, right? But number 1, egg roll and pancit. There's
Yes.
just something culture about it. It's true. It's, making it, and then during potluck, this is always a staple as well, right?
One of the things with my
Yeah.
book, actually, at the beginning of every chapter, I have a recipe.
Ooh,
So it
what is-
also functions as a cookbook. And so I have about 22 recipes altogether.
Okay.
And what happens is at first, she doesn't know anything about Filipino food.
not
So
at all.
they're just fusion recipes about different cultures. It's a metaphor.
Okay.
It's about bringing cultures together. And as she gets further and further in the book, she actually learns to combine her Jewish culture and her Filipino culture together.
Oh, wow. Wow, that is amazing. I can also see your smile, and in your heart, you're sparkling. Like when you talk about it, I can feel that.
Thank you.
And then in your book, so how many chapters in your book?
22,
22.
I believe.
So if you could pick one of the chapters, what is I would say that was your most favorite?
My favorite chapter is probably it's a story that is her mother tells the story of when she was young. It's a sad story, but I love the emotional impact of this because it is partially based on true events where about how the mother was in school, grade 3, and she is bullied for bringing Filipino food to school. She brings pitong talong, rice with sasawan.
I know it's a fish though, because I know.
Well, it's eggplant.
Eggplant,
and it has the vinegar in it.
Oh,
and
okay, I see.
a boy goes up to her and he pulls her hair and he gets peanut butter in her hair.
Oh no.
And he says, "Why can't you be normal?" And she becomes very ashamed of her food. And as she comes home, as she's walking home with her mother, she tells her mother, "I don't want to eat rice anymore." And her mother doesn't understand why. And she says, "I just want to be normal. I just want to be like everyone else."
Oh my God, such a
And
great impact.
from her point of view, I write about how she can feel by saying those words out loud, she is setting herself apart. And she doesn't know how to express it. She doesn't know how to express this pain she feels by ripping herself away from this culture that belongs to her mother and trying to integrate what she thinks is Canadian culture. And the only way she can express it is by screaming. And then she throws her bag on the ground, and then her lunch comes out because she never ate it.
Okay, because
she was so ashamed.
So ashamed of it.
And it's a very common story. Like there's
Yeah.
so many books, so many novels, so many plays, television shows. They'll talk about immigrants or first generation immigrants saying that I didn't fit in. I was made fun of for bringing this food to school. And it's so common. And now I'm hoping that my children don't feel this way, because sometimes I'll give them Filipino food to bring to school.
Yeah.
And kids are curious,
Yeah, always.
but they aren't shamed for it anymore. Not as much as they used to be. Like for my story, when I was in grade 7, I brought, my mom loved to make me Spam and egg sandwiches. You know, it's like the Filipino version, sandwich version of Spam salog, basically. And I brought the Spam sandwich, and it would be white bread, egg, white bread, Spam, fried Spam, crispy fried Spam, white bread. And I brought that to school, and somebody leaned over to me and they said, "Why are you bringing dog food to school?"
Oh my.
And then somebody said, "Well, Filipinos eat dogs." And so I was embarrassed that this horrific racist stereotype was put on me at 12 years old. And I just didn't want to bring that to school anymore.
Oh, wow. I'm so moved by that story. Now it reminds me of, this is a true story. I think it happens to, in preschool. I think, Filipino, we usually have fork and spoon.
Right.
Unlike, Canadian, where you just use fork, usually fork. But apparently this, the teacher, separate that kid because she is using spoon and fork, and because
I remember
that's
that
her
story.
habit. You remember the story?
Yes.
Yeah, and that was my first story about this one. But it opened my eyes, really, in our audience for sure, that this thing's still happening.
Yeah.
Right? Like, especially the kids, they're actually exploring who are they, like, especially if you are two cultures combined into one. But right, but I love your story. Yeah, I think you remember that story as well, like separating the kids because he refused, I think, or she refused to, use just fork.
Yes.
Right, that kind of thing. Oh, wow. Oh, okay. So what are your challenges? I know being an author, it's not just about writing a book, but what are your challenges when you're actually start writing, and even are publishing the book? And it's not just, the story doesn't end in there, as we know.
Right.
Writing it, publish it, and then you have to sell it, of course. You have to market it yourself. So what are your challenges?
For myself, well, I work very hard to market myself. I started off as a playwright, and I did fairly well. Actually, I'm going to start from the beginning. When I was a very young child, when I was 12 years old, I wanted to be a writer. And so I wrote my very first manuscript, and I didn't know how to get that published. So what I had done was that I grabbed all the paperbacks I had, and I looked at the first page, and in the inside cover, it'll usually have the description of where the publishing house is located. And I sent that manuscript off to about 12 different publishing houses. That is not how you publish a book. I know that now as an adult.
Okay.
That's not how you do it.
Of course, yeah.
And I only heard from 2, and one of them was fairly scathing and said, this story is not very good, gave no constructive feedback. And the second one basically said, this isn't how you publish a book, and keep writing. That's basically it. And so I felt very disheartened, but I still love to write.
So you continue,
right.
despite the rejection.
I just kept writing, but I didn't know how it ever get published. And then by the time I was in university, I got into acting. And I was involved. I took theater in university. I didn't major in it because I figured I'm never going to get a job in theater. I was concerned because there were no actors in my year that were of color. The only person I saw on stage in university, I saw one actor of color, and she played a maid out of maybe like 60 theater students. It was really disheartening. And so I thought, I'm never gonna make a living doing that, so I'll go into psychology, which is not the best degree to get a job. I know that now. And so the day after I graduated, I saw a poster asking for auditions, and they did colorblind casting. So
that's good.
It was for theater at the, what do they call it? Theater at the Forks. And I auditioned. I did a monologue for Shylock's I Am a Jew monologue, which is one of my favorite monologues in Shakespeare, basically saying, like, why can't, I'm just like you, treat me the same. And I got a lead role. And by being involved with this theater company, they actually taught you not just about acting, but they taught you about all facets of theater, including direction, stage managing, front of house, back of house. And by learning all of this about theater, then I started to write my own plays, and I got involved in the Fringe Festival, and I did very, very well. I won Best of Fest a few times, which is like the top grossing shows. I had done very well. I started to do plays just outside the Fringe Festival. I did plays with Sarasvati Theatre, and if we'll fast forward, I had done a play in Toronto for the, what was it called? The Tales from the Flip Side Theater Festival for Filipino-Canadian playwrights. And that was in February 2020. And when I returned from Toronto, like the week I returned from Toronto, Great Plains Publishing contacted me and asked me, would you ever write a book? And I said, well, you know what, I wanted to write a book at 12, but I was told I was doing it wrong. And I asked, what do you want me to write about? And they said, well, we're looking at nonfiction right now, and we're looking at young adults. I said, I don't know anything about teenagers. I don't have any interest in young adults. But I have a food blog, Peg on a Plate on Instagram.
Oh, there you go. Check it out.
I have a food blog, and I'd love to write about Filipino restaurants, because I was always fascinated about the idea of why Filipino food isn't the next best thing. So this is February 2020, and then March 2020, every restaurant in the world closed. So I couldn't I couldn't write about it, right? And so then they approached me again. They said, well, do you still want to write? And I said, sure, but I can't write about restaurants. It's like, when you think of something, we will be here waiting. And I came up with the story with my son, and I sent them the first 3 chapters, and they said, yeah. We'll do it.
Oh, wow.
And I had a contract 3 months later. And after editing, the editing process took about a year, it was on the shelves. And so my challenges are sitting down and actually doing it, like taking the time, like actually having time to write. During the pandemic, I had done this book. I had done a play with Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre. It was a short play called Where Are You From?, which explores the question of why does that question mean one thing when you are white and another thing when you are brown? And that play is now published in Magdaragat.
Oh, there you go. So
this
that
book.
was your second book.
Yes, well, yeah, this Magdaragat is an anthology of 44 Filipino-Canadian writers from all over Canada.
Okay, so.
And I was approached. They said, do you want to contribute something? And I
Okay.
contributed that play.
All
It's a
right.
short 15-minute play. And it's nestled within this wonderful anthology of poetry and essays and interviews and first-person discussions of the Filipino-Canadian experience. And I'm so honored to be part of that. But I wrote that play during the pandemic. And during the pandemic, I wrote an essay for Winnipeg Arts Council detailing the struggles of writing while being isolated. And another thing I wrote was I finished a play called Precipice. Now, that had been a play that I had started many, many years ago. And during the pandemic, I decided to pick it up and rewrite it again.
Okay.
And Precipice is based on very loosely based on my experience of converting to Judaism, and about how symbolism of religion and ceremony of religion can set you free.
Yeah. Okay.
And that play won the 2021 Jewish playwriting competition.
Oh wow!
Which is,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Oh.
So I needed the time to sit down and write.
Yeah.
Because those 2 years of the pandemic where there were no distractions, I had written more than I had written my entire career.
Oh wow! So I would say focus. It's really
Focus,
the focus is
and time.
Yeah.
I have a
You
full-time
have to make-
job
yeah.
as well. I work with the government. I'm the mother of 2 children.
Well, how can you do it? A mother, a writer, an author.
Yes. I don't sleep much.
Do you still sleep? I
That's
get that.
basically it. I don't sleep much.
Who doesn't need
Yeah.
sleep anyway? Oh, anyway, we still need sleep. Right?
Yes.
Self-care is important as well.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Okay, so I guess your determination, actually your resilience, which is, I think, is a Filipino trait as well. Because we
Yes.
all know that we come here as an immigrant. I mean, your parents probably, you are
Yes.
born here?
Yes, I was born here.
Okay, but I guess your parents, you can relate to your parents.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
myself an immigrant. I know I couldn't even, I thought in the beginning that, as an immigrant coming here, I need more challenge. It's kind of like proving yourself, like, yes, I can do it. That's why also reason I write a book, because I know there's also few Filipino that actually an author. And I feel like, is it like a thing, like being an author, like, but I also want to prove, not just for myself, right? It's also like, it's kind of like a dream come true, a goals. You want to do something for you, but not just for me, actually. In the end, I want to be proud, like one of those Filipino that become an author.
Yes.
Also, I'm a Filipino-Canadian author, right?
Right.
Right. And speaking of that, as in you share about your challenges, obstacles, and think about your book, and what are your 3 words, if you describe yourself, because I know you are, I would say, phenomenal. I'm hearing your story. I think 30 minutes is not enough to tell more about, your achievement and what you do, but if you describe yourself in 3 words,
My 3 words would be ambitious.
Ambitious.
Because when I see something I want, I will go for it.
Okay.
Creative.
Creative.
I just love telling stories so much. And proud.
I'm proud.
I am so proud of everything I have. I used to be very humble, and I would tell people I was just very lucky that opportunities came my way. And then somebody pointed out to me, Primrose, this wasn't luck. You worked for this. Be proud of what you have. Hold your head up high. Just so much in our culture is about keep your eyes down, be humble, be modest. But sometimes we have to take the compliments, take the win, and put ourselves out there and be proud of who we are. Filipino pride.
Yes, go Filipino. Mabuhay Filipino. But I just say, you're Jewish as well, right?
Yes.
And I'm just going to go back to Jewish.
Sure.
Is it more I know for the Jewish, I have clients Jewish. I know the food and the culture and the religion is you take it really seriously. I would say.
Yeah.
How is it a challenge for you? Like the Filipino culture and then Jewish and the food. So how do you actually?
There were
able
some
to-
struggles in the beginning. I will say we do not keep kosher. We eat
Okay.
plenty of pork in our family.
Okay.
There are pork and bacon recipes
All right.
in here.
Okay.
But I do put them and I actually indicate that they do not keep kosher as well.
Oh, okay.
But what it comes down to for the religion is that my husband was so proud of his religion, and his family, they're Holocaust survivors.
Oh.
He wanted to make sure that lives on through him.
Okay.
But I told him a long time ago when we were starting to get really serious that if I was ever to convert, you would have to propose to me first. I'm not even going to think about it. It's not even going to cross my mind, because if you're going to propose to me for who I am, not for what my religion is. I will say that at the time, I had left Catholicism long ago. I just did not have the great experiences with it, and I didn't agree with some of the things that had happened in the church.
Okay.
And
So
so
it's your choice that
yes.
you want to
So
convert.
I was already agnostic when I met my husband
Okay.
Josh, and when he told me how much he loved his religion, I thought, okay, fine. And then he proposed, and I go through all of this in my play Precipice. I wanted him to love me for me, and he said, I will love you no matter who you are, what you believe in, or whether you come to synagogue with me or not. And I said, okay. And I met with his rabbi, and I just said, I just want to know more about it. And his rabbi sat down with me, Rabbi Green from Shaare Zedek Synagogue, and he said that he had lived in the Philippines for a while.
Oh.
That he was the rabbi for a synagogue in Manila, and he was guiding some of the rebels during the People Power Revolution.
Oh, yeah.
And he said he talked to them about nonviolent protest.
Okay.
And I said, really? Tell me more. And he guided me through about peacefulness, love, and most importantly, questioning your place in the world. And I found out that's a big part of Judaism, exploration.
Oh.
And I fell in love with the religion.
Oh, okay.
I fell in love
So you
with the
embrace
idea.
it.
Yes,
Of
I
course.
completely embraced it. And a lot of people say that Jews that choose Judaism, that convert, they're often more religious because they aren't just born into it.
Oh,
When you're
yes.
born into it, you take advantage of it.
course,
You know,
there's a different-
and it's just like, I'm already Jewish, right?
Okay.
Just like Catholics, I'm already Jewish.
yeah.
But if you actually
Yeah.
choose to come to any religion,
Yes.
you choose how spiritual you want your life. And so it's become an important part of our lives. Like my oldest son, he's already had his bar mitzvah. My youngest one, we're working on his. I sing as part of the Ruach, which is a spirit choir at the synagogue. I just got a solo, actually. I'm kind of proud of that.
Oh, nice.
But I really embraced it as a large part of my life.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's an amazing story.
Thank you.
Now, it reminds me of when you talk about, I'm just going to keep in touch with,
Sure.
or like kind of connected. As you know, our national hero, Dr. Jose Rizal.
Yes.
We have actually a monument here in Winnipeg, kind of they put like a park for Dr. Jose Rizal. And Dr. Jose Rizal is actually an author
Yes,
as well.
a poet.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, yes, there you go. Then you talk about this, that you can protest, but it doesn't have to be, with, war, like, using gun or other things, right? So that's
Right.
what Jose Rizal did.
Yeah, I know. I found that so beautiful.
Yeah, that he actually wrote a book and people's
Yeah.
mind open about it, right?
Yes.
To the, a silent revolution, but very powerful.
Yes.
Yeah. and also, what are your advice for an aspiring authors?
My biggest advice is to just write. I've met so many writers that are like, I'm stuck, I'm not sure what to write about,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do.
I think that's a dilemma for the
Yes.
first time.
For me, for my play Precipice, my play before that I'd written, and for this book, what I did was that I set a goal for every single day. I would write a page a day or a scene a day. It doesn't have to be good. It could take 5 minutes to write that page.
Yeah.
It can take 2 hours.
Yeah.
But just write it, because you can always go back and edit it.
Yes.
So as long as you have it on paper, then you have something.
Yes.
And from that something, you can just keep building on it. You can go back and rewrite it.
Exactly.
But you've written. You are a writer if you have written. And
Yes.
that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Write.
Just right.
Just
You don't have to be
right.
perfectionist.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That'll come later.
And you know what? I learned that also in my own thing. Like sometimes I can be a perfectionist myself, but I realize just keep on writing. If you have a 30 minutes in a day that you can just do write whatever in your heart, it doesn't have to be think about grammar or like is it perfect English. You can just write it. It's true.
Exactly.
I really agree with that. So, what advice would you give to your younger self?
My younger
for
self?
sure, there's a lot of golden nuggets.
Just
but yeah.
keep going. Believe in your writing. And don't be afraid. Be fearless. And don't hold back.
Don't hold back. I
Yeah.
love that. Be fearless.
Be fearless.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. Especially when you're younger, I know for sure. It's also like, you don't know what to do and who you're going to talk to. But I guess we all know this online platform. There's a lot of things, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, other things,
Yeah.
Google. I mean, right? Because I would say, and again, being connecting with your community and have inspiring stories like you, and they can connect with you for sure. And ask questions. Yeah, I say ask questions, right?
Exactly.
If you're curious about something, the first one, be curious, and then just find out about it. Again, yeah, I love that you have to be fearless because
Yes.
it's true. Always, most of the time, people sometimes like, can you do this? Ask yourself, can I do this? I'm able to do this, right? Things like that. Like I would say like for me, I'm not the best in English. I don't have the perfect grammar, but I just write because in my heart, it's my goal, it's my dream, and I want to do it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, there's the fire in there. You agree with me?
Exactly,
Yeah, right?
yes.
Okay, so we all know that in March, we celebrate the International Women's Day, right?
Yes.
So, so what are your thoughts about this International Women's Day?
Well,
Where is this-
I think it's very important, like for myself as a woman and a woman of color, that as I rise, pull other people up with me. I don't want to step over anyone to get to where I am. I want us all to come forward together. One of the things that, a group that I got involved with just before the pandemic, they're called the 3.7%. And because I was mainly involved with playwriting, so there was a census that had come out about theater in North America. And they had taken stock of all the writers and directors and actors and crew and set designers, etc., all the different positions in theater. And when you took all the women and all the people of color, and when you overlapped it, out of everyone involved in theater in North America, only 3.7% were both women and persons of color. That is such a small amount of people. And so this group, which started in Vancouver, they got together and they were groups of women who were persons of color, and they would discuss, what can we do to help ourselves? And I really took that to heart. I have a play called Then Comes Marriage. And at the time when I was writing it, this was in 2018, 2019, I wrote this play. This is the one that was performed in Toronto.
Okay.
And I had decided I want to make one of the characters Filipino. And that forced people to, if they wanted to cast it, they have to cast a Filipino woman.
Oh.
There's no choice.
There's no choice.
So I started like as a writer, I'm the one who has to create these characters. There was a book that I was produced in called Generation Next, and that's Next with XX. The whole, there's this book and it has short scenes, and it has short scenes of plays that are for characters that are under the age of 30. The play that I submitted was a play with 2 female Filipino characters under the age of 30. And because of that, when they had to perform, all 20, 30 scenes, I can't remember how many were in that book, they had to perform that for the stage. They had no choice but to hire 2 young Filipino women actors. And by doing that, they didn't just act in my scenes, they acted in like 7 or 8 other scenes, because it didn't matter what those characters, their color of their skin is. And in my play Precipice, the one that I had won the Jewish playwriting competition with, it is about a Filipino woman and her mother, and all the people in their lives, and you have to have 2 Filipino women play those roles. When we were working on the first couple of workshops, I insisted that we also have a Filipino woman director. In my play, Where Are You From? That one that was published in here, that asks, why does it mean something different when you are Filipino or when you are brown?
Yeah.
When you ask that question to somebody white, it means something else.
Yeah, of course.
And I insisted we need to have a Filipino woman director. As the writer, I realized I have the power to make this change. I have to write these characters, and I have to insist who's on my crew. And I'm hoping that one day when Precipice is produced, I want a female woman Filipino director. I want a stage manager who is woman Filipino. I want as many people as possible on the crew to be Filipino and women.
All right.
I will pull other people up, because that is my role. If I'm going to be successful, let me do what I can to make others successful as well.
I love that. To summarize, like empowered women, empower women.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
That's the word. Oh my God. Oh, well, I could say advocating this one. So I really wish and really hope that this will. I know it will. Yeah.
Yes.
It will. So so where is your book going to be available, or where can they buy it?
Oh, well, both books actually are available anywhere you buy books, basically. McNally Robinson is one of the great supporters that I've had, and I think I might even have some signed copies there. And you can Indigo, Chapters, Amazon. And if you go to any bookstore's website and you actually look up Lessons in Fusion or look up Primrose Madayag Knazan, you will probably find my book. I was actually looking at the Target website in the US, and I found my book there.
Oh,
so
wow.
literally any place where you buy books, if you look at their website, you can find Lessons in Fusion as well as Magdaragat.
All right, there you go.
And I'm hoping the Magdaragat launch will be announced soon, but will likely be at the beginning of May. And we've just had the Toronto launch of the Magdaragat anthology, and the Winnipeg launch should be announced soon.
So I know you keep saying Magdaragat. So if those people, let's say Canadian or doesn't speak Tagalog or Filipino, what is Magdaragat means?
Voyagers of the Sea.
There you go.
And one of the things that's with the book Magdaragat, like when they chose the title Voyagers of the Sea, it's a lot about travel and movement and the different kind of stories that can come from Filipino culture and Filipino Canadians.
Yes, definitely. Wow, amazing. So is there anything else that you can tell our audience? What's the next step for you aside from, you want to have that director and Filipino?
So I'm working on my play Precipice. I will start writing my next novel. I just need to find the time because I can only do so much. Okay. But I've been doing a lot of speaking engagements. I've been speaking at schools about my book and my plays. I'm going to be in Ottawa soon to talk to a Jewish community center about my book. So I'm really excited about all the different events that I have coming up.
There you go. You're pretty busy.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for coming. And I would say 30 minutes or
Yes.
an hour is not enough. I think we have the whole day to talk more. But thank you again for watching another episode of Mabuhay TV. Watch out for our next episode for other amazing, inspiring stories from our upcoming guests. Again, it's your host Julie Lim of Mabuhay TV.